Hey everybody, welcome to the SERVE Brew. I'm Tori Townley. I hope y'all are having a great day today. I am pumped because we have an incredible guest speaker. It's actually a return guest, which doesn't happen often. So you guys have already heard from him. He is quickly becoming one of the outreach leaders to pay attention to. Like they are doing some incredible stuff up north in the cold, empowering people, very creative ideas. So welcome to the show, Pastor Conner.
Thanks. Um, Not quite a pastor. I'm actually still in seminary, but I appreciate it.
Hey, we're prophetically speaking. I just assume pastor. It's always the safe thing to do. And yeah, it's good. You're a pastor to me. Yeah. So you guys, if you're jumping on today, we're talking about something very exciting, very like specific, which I think is going to be great for our show moving forward. Just kind of looking into how do we reach certain people groups or focus on certain topics. So Conner is going to share with us on ideas to reach people who are in the military or have served in the military in their family. So that whole world, veterans, military, just really getting practical on that. So he's got a huge heart for it, really profound insight and revelation, and just a great heart. So Conner, we're excited to hear from you. But you know how it goes. First things first. What is your coffee of choice? How do you take your coffee?
I'm notoriously like sweet with my coffee. I just like dump flavored creamer in there. My wife thinks it's hilarious that like the big bad Marine like fills half the mug with French vanilla creamer, but that's how I do it.
That's what we call coffee milk in the South. He drinks his coffee milk. There is no shame in that. It should be a treat. It is something to enjoy. I don't want to feel like I got slapped in the face when I'm drinking coffee. It
Yeah,
should be a
exactly.
warm hug. So
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, Conner, real quick, tell us a little about yourself, like some of the fun facts, and then about Movement Church.
Yeah, so my name's Connor. Like you said, I direct community outreach and engagement for Movement Church. We call that the SERVE program, like many other churches who are involved with Servolution. I got involved at the staff level with Movement because I actually serve in the Army National Guard, and I'm in the process of trying to become a military chaplain. And what a lot of people don't know is that to become a chaplain in the military, you actually have to be ordained by a separate organization. Like the military can't define what the requirements are to become a chaplain. So I'm working on ordination through the Christian Missionary Alliance, and they require you to have had at least 2 years of staff experience at a local church. So when I started that process, I approached our lead pastor, Jeff Nicoletti, and told him, "Hey, this is what's going on. I would like to stay at our church if possible. So what can I jump in and help with?" And he gave us the burgeoning Serve program, and that's what I've been doing for about almost a year now.
I did not realize that was part of what you were doing. That is so cool. What led you to pursue this?
So I've been in the military. I think we're going to get to this a little bit later, but I've been involved in the military for a long time. I was in the Marines for a little over 5 years, and then I've been in the Guard for about 2 years. I knew that I wanted to continue serving the military in some capacity, but I also wanted to bring kind of my passion for ministry into that. Um, what I really love to do, what I love the most about the Army is the opportunity to take care of my soldiers. It's my favorite thing to do. So being a chaplain is the opportunity to do that professionally. Let that be my entire job is just take care of soldiers. So
Wow, that is super, super cool. That is amazing. I'm excited to get deeper into that heartbeat that you have. First, okay, tell us a little about your family, a little bit about your personality and Movement Church, what it's all about.
so my wife is named Elizabeth. I call her Beth. Um, she is a professional financial planner, which is great because I'm awful with money. So we balance out each other very well. We started attending movement in 2020 when we got married. We got married October 3rd, 2020, and we started attending movement because Pastor Jeff actually married us. Um, Movement's been around for we're coming up on our fifth birthday in I think like 2 weeks, which is pretty exciting. We've been static for about 3 years. Before that, we were mobile. And so we just have like a real heart for the city. We're called Movement Church because we see ourselves as more than a building, right? We're like an activist movement of God's kingdom, building the kingdom here in Charlottesville. And that's what Movement Church is all about. Our lead pastor, Jeff, likes to say that gathering produces going. It's like a gas station, right? You don't take your car to the gas station and fill it up and then like leave it there till next Sunday. You fill up your car so that you can go places during the week. And that's kind of what church is like.
I love that heart so much. And that's such a beautiful perspective to have. And you guys have, at least like since I've met you, I never realized you guys are so young. I know you've told me, but just like 5 years, that's a chunk of time, but that's still pretty new. And just to have already influenced Servolution so much, I know I highlight y'all a lot. Christmas, you were on a podcast, y'all did the 12 days of Christmas. You guys were a warming center this season, which is
Yeah.
amazing, doing that shelter. And just you've done so many cool things to empower people, your church members, like projects on a Sunday, take home, go do fun stuff, acts of kindness, just really inspiring things in the way that you see. So tell me one of your favorite outreaches you've done recently. You can highlight anything.
So probably the one that you're expecting me to say is our 12 serve days of Christmas, which was through the month of December. So typically we try to plan one or two serve events every single month to like really foster a culture of service in our church. In December for Christmas, we decided to step it up a notch and we did a 12 serve days of Christmas campaign, which is where every single Sunday people would walk out of the service into the lobby and there was something tangible that they could do, like wrapping Christmas presents for a local shelter, writing Christmas cards for migrant workers. There was such a variety of tasks that we were able to help with. We partnered with so many fantastic nonprofit organizations in the city, and we were able to help people directly in our community. Our youth group even got involved. We put together little Christmas care packages and they went door to door in our nearest neighborhood and just dropped them off with people. And it was really amazing because we got to kind of get that 1-2 punch of like helping incredible organizations and drawing attention to them while also not forgetting about the one and like really interacting with individuals and families and building relationships right at the one-on-one level, which was amazing.
That is amazing. And it definitely has inspired a lot of churches. So if you're listening to this, guys, there is a podcast episode where Conner goes really deep into all their plans for that. So before Christmas of 2022 hits, definitely listen to that and get all the ideas and stuff. But yeah, you guys are just always up to really incredible things. And what I love about this episode, we're going to focus on military and veterans. And what sparked this conversation and this idea was actually through a Servolution meetup. So if you're not attending those, you guys, this is where the stuff really happens. Serve brews are great, but like the action happens in these meetups and they're so much fun. But someone asked, like, what are the ideas for Veterans Day? And we didn't have a whole lot of content planned. I know there were some ideas on the website, but Conner really jumped in on that question and shared just some amazing perspectives, not only on how to reach people who are in the military, but also how to empower them. So I was like, Conner, you got to come and share a little of your story and give us some practical ideas. So that's what we're going to jump into now. Conner, will you tell us a little of just kind of your personal journey? I know you touched on it a little bit, but what's your experience in the military been in the past and now?
Yeah, so I joined the United States Marine Corps right out of high school. I was an Arabic cryptologic linguist, so I did kind of military intelligence collection type work, um, and including a small amount of overseas travel. And then I got out of the Marines and joined the Army National Guard, where I do the same thing. I'm an Arabic cryptologic linguist still. I lead a small platoon of soldiers in the Army. And then I worked as a government contractor for a little while I was in the National Guard. And I deployed to Iraq, to Al Assad Air Base, and to uh, Erbil International Air Base up in Kurdistan. And that was in 2019.
Okay, wow, my head's kind of spinning. Like that is a very intellectual job. Wow, that's cool. What drove you to join right after high school? Like that's a very big thing.
It was it's really interesting because I joined for like purely practical reasons. I joined just for access to like benefits and the GI Bill to go to college for free. But once I was there, another kind of I guess fun fact is I wasn't raised in the church. I became a Christian while I was in the Marines. So shortly after joining the Marines, God really just did amazing work in my heart and my spirit and opened me up to a life of service that I didn't expect. I joined the military specifically for my own benefit. But once I was kind of put in a position of putting service before myself, God really worked in me and exposed me to needs all over the world, and not just needs all over the world, but needs that were right around me and the people that I interacted with, and my friends and in my family. And once I got exposed to those ideas, it kind of grew a heart of service in me that kind of propelled me to where I am now.
That is amazing, and I would have never known that, like, I would have thought that the drive would have come at the beginning, and just to hear that, like, that was the process and what was birthed in you through that, that is incredible to me. And you found Jesus, that's so cool. Was that through a chaplain kind of experience, or where did that happen?
Oh, it's actually this is a whole story, but I'll just give you like a quick overview. I've suffered from persistent depressive disorder for pretty much my whole life. Um, Early on in my Marine Corps career, because the Marine Corps is very stressful, it kind of triggered a lot of stuff for me, and I spent a little bit of time in a mental health facility. And after I got out, I kind of recognized that some things in my life needed to change, some perspectives on the world needed to change. And I actually just had some friends and colleagues who were, they lived their Christian life out loud. And they were just, even in the midst of struggles and trials, they were very joyful people. And I wanted a little bit of what they had. So I convinced one of them to start taking me to church, and the rest was history after that.
Oh my gosh. This is like going on a treasure hunt. Like your story keeps opening up more and more and more. Like, wow, that's intensely amazing. Just that, I don't know. Thank you for being vulnerable with that. You did not have to answer that part of the story, but I think even just that glimpse into where you've been and where you are now gives so much hope, because I think the mental struggle is just harder and harder and harder and harder. And so just to know that there's people who have fought and done the work and found Jesus through it and found hope, and now you're probably still battling things, but you're strong and you're waking up every day and fighting through. So we honor you for that. Thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
that's really cool. So now we kind of have, I know we could probably sit for hours and tell me stories and things you experience and the repercussions and the joys of it. And I would love to get deeper into that. But I think for the sake of the show today, I would love to just jump into what you see as far as where you've been and like how can the church, how can outreach leaders, people who have we know we want to honor our veterans and our active military and their families. And sometimes in the meetup, the person who asked the question was like, it's great to do these acts of kindness and they are a great door opener, but sometimes we want to make sure that we're really deeply there and we're really helping people who have been through so much and who have sacrificed so much. It's not always enough to stop at here's a letter of appreciation on Veterans Day, or hey, like I anytime I'm in Walmart and I see a veteran with his hat on, I'm like, hey, thank you for your service. And that's a great gesture. But how can we get deeper in truly caring for this population who's cared for us so well? So what would you say?
Yeah, I think you're right on the money as far as I think the veteran community, almost more than any other community, is very quick to spot sort of what I would describe as like superficial service. The veteran community has been exposed to it. You know, every veteran's experienced the like handshake on Veterans Day, and then they're kind of forgotten about every other day of the year, right? And I think that for a church that's really interested in serving the veteran community, there are two lenses to look at it through. The first is through the veterans inside your church community, because I'm sure no matter where you are in the country or in the world, if you're listening to this, you probably have veterans in your community, whether you know about it or not. And the other thing is veterans in your community that are outside of your church. And those are the two different kinds of perspectives to take into account. And the biggest thing to remember, I think, is that the veteran experienced it's really challenging to generalize it. For example, there are two other veterans in my church that I'm really close friends with, and we had completely different military experiences. All three of us, none of the three of us can really relate to really specific experiences that the other two have had. But there are sort of general traits that are very common. So I'm going to kind of generalize a little bit, but just remember that the experience is definitely not monolithic at all. Um, One thing to keep in mind about veterans in your church community is that one of the things that draw people to the military in the first place is this sense of service before self, this sense that there's something bigger going on in the world, and I want to be a part of it, and I want to contribute to it in some way. So one of the easiest ways to get veterans in your church, to serve veterans in your church and to build a relationship with them, is to provide them opportunities to grow with one another and to grow with your church. You can think of it almost like any other type of demographic ministry that you might have in your church. Like if you have a men's ministry, if you have a women's ministry, you have men's groups and women's groups, a men's lunch after Sunday service. You can do the same thing for the veterans in your community. Have like a veterans luncheon or a veterans small group or a veterans serve day, and kind of provide those opportunities for them to build camaraderie with one another and with the church as a whole.
That's amazing. It's really, really smart. Yeah. That was when you mentioned that in the meetup of just thinking of ways to identify these people who have served. That kind of blew my mind, just the way that you see those lenses. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've certainly struggled with the most since transitioning out of the military, and I know that many veterans that I'm personally close to, again, I'm trying to avoid generalizing too much, but one thing that I know from my own experience and some of my friends' experience is the level of camaraderie and brotherhood and relationship that you have in the military just is impossible to replicate in any other life situation. When you think about like as a young service member, you're living in the barracks, you've probably got one or two roommates for the entire time. It's very similar to dorm life for those of you who have gone to college, but weren't in the military. It's very similar to dorm life, but a little more disciplined. And you're living with the same people that you're going to work with, and you spend all of your time with them. You're probably hanging out outside of work and on the weekends. And not only are you hanging out, but you're going through these very challenging experiences together, and that fosters a real sense of brotherhood and relationship. And so getting out of the military and transitioning into kind of real life, that camaraderie is impossible to replicate. In any civilian workplace, the relationships that you have with your coworkers are so fundamentally different than relationships that you had with coworkers in the military. And so what a lot of veterans are looking for, especially veterans who join churches, is a sense of community and camaraderie and shared values and kind of a shared mission. And so there are a lot of easy ways to provide that just through kind of what I would say are just best practices for leading a church in the first place, right? Like if you're leading your church well, you should have a shared mission, you should have shared values and a shared culture. These are all things that I hope that your church has already. And then it's just a matter of kind of looping your veterans into that and giving them an outlet to build that camaraderie around those things.
Good. That's really good. And one thing I remember you shared at the we were figuring out, how do you identify veterans in your church? Because sometimes it's not advertised unless you're like, hey, if you're a veteran, come get a gift on Veterans Day. How do you go about that? And you shared something so profound, which I don't know if you remember. I don't want to take it out of your mouth.
I I I think I know what you're referencing.
Yeah.
One of the things to know is that veterans know other veterans kind of
Like,
intrinsically. Um, my wife teases me sometimes because we'll be like out for dinner or something, and I'll just see a dude at like a table, two tables away, and be like, "Oh, that guy was in the army, or that guy was a Marine, or something like that." And she's like, "How could you possibly know that?" And it's kind of just like a weird veteran radar. Um, so what I would say to the outreach leader or the pastor who's trying to build a sense of veteran community in your church, if you know one, you're good to go because that veteran knows who the other veterans are in your church, I promise. So if you decide like, hey, we're going to start a veteran small group or we're going to start a veterans lunch, but I don't know how to get their attention, I don't know who everybody is to invite them. I think if you take the one or two that you do know and invite them, it'll kind of filter its way around and the rest will find out about it. Because I guarantee that even if you don't know who they are, the veterans in your church are probably friends with one another. They probably know each other.
that's really amazing. I love it because it brings us back to the heart of the one. Like you don't have to have it all figured out. You just start with one and God will put it all together. So very cool. I want to get a little deeper into, once we, let's go this way. You said the two lenses. So there's the church, the veterans within the church, and then there's the veterans or active military, whoever that we want to reach outside of the church. Let's go. I want to come back to the inside of the church, but let's do outreach focus
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that we can either identify partners or just go out and find people to honor and serve? And what are some of the ways we can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great and beautiful things about this country is there's really no shortage of local and regional and national veterans organizations that churches can potentially get connected to if they want to serve veterans in their community. One nonprofit in particular is called Team Red, White, and Blue. It's stylized as RWB if you Google it online, so Team RWB. And they're a nonprofit designed specifically to help veterans find that sense of community that I talked about earlier and help them with those feelings of a lost community and lost camaraderie. So as a veteran, I can sign up for Team Red, White, and Blue. And then I can get involved with just like a local club of people who get together every once in a while. Sometimes they volunteer, sometimes they do like trivia nights, things like that. Um, so if you're interested in helping out, Team Red, White, and Blue has local chapters in pretty much every major city in the country. So you can find them either through the Team Red, White, and Blue website or through Facebook very often. Many cities also have a VFW, which stands for Veterans of Foreign Wars. The VFW has slightly stricter membership than the Team Red, White, and Blue. To be a member of Team Red, White, and Blue, you just have to be a veteran. Veterans of Foreign Wars have a little bit stricter entry requirements as far as certain experiences that veterans had while they were in the military. But that's another great option because VFWs typically will have their own facility as well. And sometimes those facilities require upkeep and maintenance, and they have an event space and things like that. So that has kind of opportunities for outreach. And then another really great idea is most senior centers have a few veterans and they know who those veterans are. So if you're already involved with a senior center or if you want to get involved with veterans, that's another great option is you can reach out to a local senior center and say, hey, we're really interested in serving and honoring the veteran community. We're aware that your facility might have some veterans that we would really like to honor, and how can we partner with you? And then from there, you can kind of just use whatever outreach ideas that you've already kind of been doing because veterans, the great thing is that veterans are just regular people like anybody else, right? So you can serve them and love them and honor them in the same way that you honor others through outreach.
I love that. It's just have fun, like get creative and see what happens. And I think you share this, but like just that relationship really drives some of the responses that we do have. So when you identify one or two veterans and you would get to know their stories, that's going to help shape where we go next with our serve and our outreach. And for some churches, that blows up. Like I wrote down some that I had found. Harbor Point Church, they do some crazy amounts of focus on active military and veterans.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that that all started with one or two stories and like it just grew and grew and so many like that. So that's very encouraging. Um, Mana Church is another one that, oh my gosh, they do amazing stuff. But I want to, you kind of gave a great snapshot, like partnerships, starting, just testing out ideas. What about the flip side that you've mentioned before on veterans are incredible people we want to honor, but also they are gifted people who have a set of character traits that are so advanced and matured and just a beautiful set of skills. And like you said, loyalty, camaraderie, like they are just gifts of people in the body of Christ. How can we value that? What are some ways we can empower them in the gifts that they have? They crave that purpose. And what have you seen?
Yeah. So one of the little soapboxes that I love to talk about is that the church is the oldest warfighting organization on earth. Every time you feed someone hungry, every time you give someone tired rest, you're destroying enemy strongholds, right? And if that's not warfighting, then what is? So the church being the oldest warfighting organization on earth, why wouldn't you want to honor and take advantage of people in your community who have experience fighting wars, right? Um, Although I try not to generalize the veteran experience too much, there's a set of skills that every veteran will have been exposed to through being in the military, and those are things like communication skills and basic supply and logistics skills and things like that that you can mobilize. And I think that the best way to do that is again sort of just best church practices. If you have a good, strong shared mission and a sense of real leadership, that can really attract the veterans in your church to your cause. I think veterans, even more than a lot of other people, have sort of an innate sense of when there's not a strong mission and when there's not strong leadership because veterans have gone through so many leaders over their military careers. They know how to spot. They know how to spot bad or weak leadership or a weak mission faster than some other people might. So if you have a strong mission, you have strong leadership, all you have to do after that is create the opportunities, right? You have to lead, maybe a veteran small group or a dedicated ministry that you can give specifically to a veterans group would be a great idea.
Very, very cool. You have brilliant advice, Connor. I want to also ask, we empowering the people, I think that's an amazing focus to take. And sometimes it's not obvious, but like you said, like just they are part of the mission and bringing things forward. And we have so much to learn. And I know I mentioned Manna Church, but one of my favorite things they do is, at least I've heard them talk about in the past, like plugging people with experience into like disaster relief situations, or sometimes it's an anti-trafficking rescue situation, or things that's like a skill set that maybe it isn't, let's go evangelize and pray for people. Maybe it is more of like that gritty purpose. Let's get in there, let's get things done. And just seeing the success of that and how much it's added value to the church as a whole. And it's just, it's so cool to think about how do we connect these dots. And that's what Servolution people or outreach guys are always thinking. How do we connect the dots from needs to our people? And so you really have like highlighted that for me, over and over, like how fun it can be if we get creative with it. So um I want to ask too, I had this written down. What about families of either veterans or active military? Do you have any thoughts? Obviously, you have a family. What are some of the
Yeah.
ways you can serve them?
Yeah, active duty life is unpredictable at its best. When I was active duty, I had no idea what time I would be done with my workday that day. There were times where I thought I was going to be home over the weekend and I wasn't. There are times, even now with the National Guard, last January, we were mobilized to support the Capitol riots on short notice. I found out like the day of, and then every single day while I was there, I had absolutely no idea how long I was going to be there. So my wife would be texting me like, hey, when are you going to be home? Are you going to be home in time for next weekend? And I had no idea. So the best thing that you can do is recognize that that's unpredictable and that's going to come with a lot of emotional and spiritual and mental stress. So I would say just knowing who the people in your community are who might be affected by things like that and being there and loving them and caring for them. Especially and providing opportunities for that connection can be really amazing because, for example, like if you have a couple different veterans in your group and one of them gets called away for some kind of service, right, the spouses of those veterans can connect with one another and really share from personal experience and help each other through those situations.
That's really cool. Yeah, so important to be sensitive to that. I can imagine my husband is a lineman, so when the lights go out, he has to leave and it's like, where are you going to be? I don't know. And I can't imagine like the scale of how that can be so intense on a family, and especially with little ones, and that's hard. So keeping that on our radars is big. I know I've seen churches do like a military spouse appreciation dinner, or like a parents' day out. We'll provide childcare. Have you seen any fun things, or maybe has your family experienced any cool acts of kindness on that vein of life?
So we weren't involved super deeply with our current church when I was last deployed, and then my wife and I weren't together when I was active duty. But most units, when they're deployed, will have things like spouses getting together. They'll have some kind of group message or email or something like that. They'll all get together for meals. One of the important things to consider when you're planning an event like that, like a spouse's lunch or a spouse's appreciation, remember that your goal is not just to like serve them and provide this service, but you're building connections also. Like a spouse might meet another spouse at this event that becomes a lasting relationship and a lasting friendship. And they might not have had the opportunity otherwise to connect with this person. So in addition to providing that service, you're also building relationships, which is a really beautiful thing.
That's a very brilliant point, and that goes for both the people who are in active military as well. Yeah, like people crave community, and to be able to provide that is definitely the gift. That's a really cool perspective to have on it, to remember. what other do you have? Can you just like give us like some bullet points really fast? I'm a new church. I want to get started in this. I'm working on identifying who we're going to serve. Give me like a handful of ideas on what I can do, where I can start. I know we can
Yeah.
partner. What else?
Yeah, this is a great opportunity to talk about care packages because people ask me about this all the time. They want to send care packages to deployed service members. If you want to do that, you should do it through the USO. And really, that's a great first stop. If you want to care or honor for veterans in any way, the USO is a great organization to do that. If you live near a major airport, for example, every airport has a USO lounge, which is for veterans and active duty service members. And they are always hurting for volunteer support and financial support. So that's like a really easy way to do it, especially if you live near an airport. And even if you don't, they can orchestrate care packages. Like if you don't have a specific person that you want to send a care package to, but you like know you want to support people who are deployed overseas, USO has a program for that. And the thing to know about care packages is that they'll typically take longer to arrive than you think they will. We talked a little bit about this during Christmas time, but if you want to send care packages for Christmas, for example, a great time to do that is Veterans Day, because that's how long it takes for care packages, especially around the holidays, to arrive. Other than the USO, I would say get in touch with your local Team Red, White, and Blue affiliate. You can usually find them pretty easily on Facebook. If you're near a big military installation, you can usually find a chaplain's office or something like that that you can get in touch with to find out how you can honor the active duty service members at that installation. And if you want to specifically help veterans, the VFW, Team Red, White, and Blue, and local senior centers are a great way to start. And if you already know that you have veterans in your church, I would really strongly recommend that you start a veterans ministry, just like you would have a men's ministry or women's ministry or any other kind of demographic ministry, and give them that opportunity for relationship.
That's huge. And I love how simple and doable this is. It's a great first step. Like all it is just take one step and see what happens. I did not realize about the airport situation. That's super cool. And as you're talking about the care packages, I remember when I think I was in high school. My grandmother did that with us, and it was such a cool experience to like, I didn't think I was going to get anything back. So I just kind of wrote, sent a picture, whatever. And I, to this day, I have like 3 or 4 notes from veterans who were, or well, they were active military. I don't remember. I think some of them were in Iraq. And that was just like one of the coolest things for me as a child to experience. Like this person is out there fighting for me and would take time to write to me. Like that was a big deal for me as a child or a young adult. So even just involving families in that, that's such a cool thing to be part of and definitely sparks more ideas as well. So very cool.
Yeah,
I love that
and
idea. Great Veterans Day to Christmas strategy there too.
and
Um,
sorry, just one. One thing, if you think it's like weird to send care packages to people you don't know, and you're like, this isn't going to be meaningful, just as like a quick anecdote, when I was at Al Assad, there was a church. None of us, no one in our unit, like went to this church. They weren't members of this church. They sent us a box of cookies every single week, and it was awesome. Like it was really great. Everybody loved the cookies. We sent them back thank you letters. Sometimes their kids sent us like drawings and letters and stuff, and it was really cool. Even though none of us knew them in person and they didn't know any of us in person, it was still very meaningful.
wow, you never forgot the box of cookies every week. That's super cool. Oh man, I love that so much. It makes a difference. You never know what a little thing can do for somebody. That's so cool. Um, any other ideas or practical words of advice when it comes to this realm of beginning our adventures and serving like this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to remember, I've said it a few times, is that the veteran community, you can't generalize it. I think people can be really quick, right? Just like any other demographic category, you just can't generalize people's experiences. And so I just want to like say that as kind of a caution and a reminder to remember that when you're doing veteran service, just like any other service, right? Like you're dealing with individuals who have had very individual experiences and a very individual history, and you don't necessarily know what that is. So a great book is Pastor Miles McPherson's Third Option, which is he wrote it for um, primarily about dealing with cross-racial relationships and that sort of thing. But the advice that it provides about not making assumptions in relationships and how to talk to people when you don't know what their experiences are, um, well, it's super handy for all areas of service, but I think that it would also be particularly useful in the veteran community as well.
That's a brilliant. I didn't even think to apply that, but that book, yes, that makes so much sense. And there's so many resources that go with it. So it's great for small groups to be able to go through and conversations to be able to have. So I love that you shared that. That's a really, really great thing to apply to this conversation. That's so cool. So we'll link to that book in the show notes and the website. Um, this is kind of backtracking a little bit, but when you mentioned the mental health aspect, are there any thoughts that you have as far as um, offering services for people who maybe are experiencing some of the PTSD or whatever kind of stuff they've been through? I know some churches are doing things for like healthcare workers who are going through so much, just offering, even if it's just like, here's some recommended counselors we're in relationship with. Anything on that line of thinking?
Yeah, I think that anything that any church can do to advocate for mental health care is huge, because generally the church has sort of a stigmatic relationship with mental health, right? And that's widely known. And it might not surprise you to know that the military also has a very stigmatic relationship with mental health. Um, the military is very quick to be the ones to say, suck it up, get over it, it's not a real problem. Just like an older and maybe certain church communities might be really quick to say, pray about it and get over it. So I think that any church advocating for mental health awareness and real practical mental health steps is beneficial. And whatever pipeline or process that you can kind of get involved with to make that available to your congregation is extremely beneficial. We did a small group series called Churches That Heal at Movement Church. And if you're not familiar with Churches That Heal, it's just incredible. I can't remember the pastor's name who made it, but he's a fantastic pastor and also a mental health provider. And there's tons of spiritual content and real research associated with mental health treatment. And it's a really beautiful small group study to go through.
I love that. I think, is it Henry Cloud? Dr. Henry Cloud? I think that's,
Yes, that
I'll
sounds
find
that
it.
sounds right.
Okay, we'll link to that too, because that is a really great resource as well. Um, yeah, very cool. I'm with you. Like, it needs to be something that is talked about a lot more because it's affecting more and more and more people. And it doesn't need to be something that we hide and try to
Yeah,
just suck it up.
absolutely.
There's no shame in doing some work there and helping each other out. So we actually at Servolution, we've got some cool people. We might be doing some podcasts soon talking about that. So stay tuned, you guys. Just a little teaser there. We're definitely going to get that conversation going deeper as well. But Conner, anything else that you want to note or share with our listeners today?
I don't think so. Obviously, I know at the end you typically share social media and stuff like that. So if anybody listening has some more specific conversation or questions, or even if they just want to like, I have this idea for serving veterans, but I don't know about it, you can absolutely feel free to contact me directly and reach out, and I'm happy to talk with you about it.
Perfect. Yeah. Where can we find you?
So you can find us at movementchurch.com. That's MVMNT church.com. So it's movement without the vowels. And on Instagram and Facebook at We Are Movement Church.
Perfect. All right. We will link to that. And so, yeah, you guys definitely either hit me up or reach out to Conner if you have any questions. And obviously, you're definitely going to be a return guest on SERVE Brew many more times to come. Oh, it's so cool. Thank you so, so much, Conner. Thank you all for jumping on today. I think this is going to be the start of some fun ideas. I think we're going to hear a lot of great feedback and you guys just testing out ideas and building relationships and really loving a community that really has done so, so much for all of us. So thank you, Conner. You rock.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time on the SERVE Brew. Take care.